Okay, happy Friday, everyone. It has been an interesting day for me. I started off morning meetings, got in my office late, and was ready to dig right in and get this midterm video done, and slammed up against something that was kind of bothersome called spyware. How many of you have had spyware, and how do you get rid of it? I think it's worth noting. I do actually a couple things. First, I actually try to remove it manually, going to find in programs. If I can just remove the affected installation things, sometimes it's that easy. Sometimes it's not. So today what I ended up having to do was downloading something called Malware Bytes and had it clean up the system and ended up having to tweak it even a little more after that. So now let me tell you where I got it. And it was my fault, is that I was downloading FileZilla in order to do the FTP on this computer today, and when it asked me to install a particular thing, I think it was FileZilla now that I think about it, because I installed like 3 things, so it could have been something else. It seems like I may have checked something that I wanted that I didn't. Now, how I knew I had the spyware was that when I went to search for Google, search something on Google, it was bypassing and taking me over to Yahoo, and I knew I immediately when something interferes with my normal operation, I know immediately. So it took me a little while to get rid of it. Kind of a bummer, but oh well, it's always a good experience. So it is the Project 1, and I want to go over it. I want to talk about, because after I got it all cleaned up, then I spent the time to go through and code the chapter lecture 8 stuff. I want to just talk about uploading, because I realized as a result of the video I did for last week, I actually didn't show you the actual upload part, and I've been watching to see if people are struggling with that point, and not everyone has posted, so I don't know. So I'm hoping this will be helpful. Okay, and then just as another woo woo, right? DevFest is coming up 2 weeks away. So again, if I gave you guys the ticket. Oh, and I will. That's where I'll start. Actually, now that I'll turn to the screen, we'll just start there. Okay, so let's turn. So here I'm just gonna say. Right, DevFest, I have so many tabs open. Hopefully this doesn't slow down too much. There we go. So we changed the site to give the ticket, used to be down lower, but we went ahead and put it here, which basically takes you to Eventbrite, okay? And there has been people that have already bought tickets, which is really wonderful, and we appreciate the support, because you buying a ticket helps support the event. But more than anything, I want you to come. When I was talking about that code GDGFCC, that's the code you apply. Okay, and when you apply, it'll tell you, then you can just, it's still coming up, right? And then you tell it, you're a student, and then you go ahead and register. Okay, so that's how you do that. So love for you to come. The event's really coming together. We're excited about what's happening there. So let's turn back though to the project. Okay, so first part is each one teach one. I've talked about this. There's really nothing different that I've done on this final version, except as I went to put it all together in the site, I ended up changing some things specifically about this link to the Project 1 HTML. And if you have done this already, which I think maybe only one person has attempted, and it's Robert, and Robert's been really great about coming to talk to me. If you've done it in this way, it's fine. I just want to show you how I ended up doing it once I thought about the files. Okay, so but there's no change here. This is still what I want you to do. I did realize when I was doing this, I'm like, photos, I didn't say how many, right? So I would expect at least 3 or 4 photos here. And then we can talk about size of photos and stuff like that if you want. But you know what looks good in a page, and I'm hopefully at this part we've walked you through enough different ways to provide pictures. You can either embed them directly into the page or link them into a cloud account, however you want. I'm not going to get real like you have to do it a particular way. I want to give you some creativity in the way you do it. And then if you do a Google presentation, which I am requiring that, assuming you take this path of teaching and showing your teaching from pictures and presentations. And then in a second, I'll go over the video. So just to say that depending on which path you take, those are the different requirements. I haven't specified a number, but again, let's say between 3 and 5, okay? So this really brings up the idea, and let me just come down here and show you. When you put this together, let me show it to you this way. Okay, so this is my index file that I ended up having as a result of that coding that was done in that week. And so what you can see here is the results of what I've done so far to the page. Let me just maximize this so you can see it. Okay, so now this may look a little different, but it's the same. It's just where it sits as far as my local drive. And then what I ended up doing, because after I thought about it, it's like I ended up just creating a link in these blog posts to each part. So you can do that, or you could also put them up here in the menu. I don't care how you do it. I just want to show you so you know the process in general, okay? So going back to the code itself, however you want to set it up, if you're modifying to put in, like in this case, right after the row, right? So after my row, my aref in this case would be to my part 1, and then here is the text, each one teach one. And again, if you want to create your own text, if you want our text link here, or you want to use your own, that's fine as well. And then I put content, right? And remember, that's what's showing here. You can take this away, you know, again, get creative, have some fun with it. I'm not grading you, and that's what's important, is to understand I'm not grading you on how you're putting the site together. I'm grading you that you've included all the requirements. So what I would say to you is don't get hung up too much on the way things look. Just make sure every piece is there. Okay, so once back to here, once I created that initial index file, then to create my first part 1 file, all I did was I did a file in my particular editor. Every editor has this, save as that index file. Then I just called it like part 1. Okay, now when I do that, obviously I'm just taking the content that is in my index file and it's putting it in another file. So then I go modify that particular file. But the nice thing about doing it this way is you save yourself from having to recode all of that page, and that's really what I'm trying to show you here. Okay, and then so now that's that part. Okay, so before I move on to actually, let me finish this concept and then we'll come back. So let me come back here. So each one teach one then links to part 1, and part 1 is its own page, and you can modify the content here. I'd recommend that. You can get rid of any of this that you want, that's fine. And then I ended up using, I went and looked at some different ways to do columns in Bootstrap, and so I came up with what I thought would be kind of a nice way. Here's my content, so each one teach one. This might be some write-up, right, that I have here, or and this might be my photos. So there's a lot of different ways, right? So if you just do, I mean, in Bootstrap, that's actually really flexible things, is that there's so many different. I'm gonna just do Bootstrap. Whew, my system is dogging it right now. Okay, and I can just do columns, right? So I can see and it'll take me to a page that I can just scroll down. And if you haven't seen these, they're really great. The documentation for Bootstrap's really good. If you scroll down, there's other places you could see this, but it gives you, right? So I ended up using this. So all I had to do was grab the code for this, right, and replace. So this is the code that would give me, now again, I'm not going to dictate which one you use, just figure out how you put all the content in there is really up to you. But I just want to show you, because really the idea of this exercise is not necessarily to do a full coding site, although this is an important part of what we studied, and more is just to make sure you have all the pieces for the midterm. So then I came over here, okay, so once I grabbed that, and then what I did is I ended up where all, let me just show you again. So, and you know this from coding it, right? So this row idea, right? Okay, so that, and what's cool for me about brackets, I'll just show you this, and your editor probably has something. If you click on a div, it'll actually show you the corresponding div that contains in there. So when I'm replacing that, I know which div to grab. And actually it was the bottom one. And there's another way actually to select, but in general, then that's where I would paste over, right, in the index file, that one. Okay, so that's each one teach one. I showed more of the photo, right, and you can a link to your Google presentation that you use. But if you ended up doing another way to present the concepts too, that's cool. It is important for me to note here on week 3, the important parts of the week 3 is the connectivity speed, right, was the IP addresses for the public and the private and understanding those differences, right, and those concepts. So go back and look at week 3 hands-on. The output of that is really what you're teaching. So if you have any questions, make sure you contact me. Okay, so now the other way you can do that is the 3 to 5 minute video, and you can use a cell phone here. There's any number of things you can do. And then you go to YouTube and there's this wonderful upload. Okay, and you can just either connect your device. I mean, many phones actually have a direct to YouTube upload as well, but you can also just connect in your device, select the video and upload it. Okay, that's one way to do it. You can also record it directly from here. Now I can't do it right now because my video is being captured, but that's the idea, is that it really is honestly this simple. I do it all the time. You click on here, you tell it the video, you give it the location no matter where you've placed it, and then it'll go through a series, and you can put some information in there. Again, give it enough that it tells you YouTube what the video is about. Okay, so once you do that, then it's way easy, because then all you have to do is link to it. And you guys have been, and gals have been doing this the whole time. So once you upload a video, then all you really have to do, and there's a couple ways you could do this, right? So again, I'm not going to dictate the way you do it. I'm going to stop this. You can either, right, copy that, go into your, and again, this would be my part 1. So right here where I have content, let me just find it, takes a second here. There we go. So this might be then where I'd put the link. Okay, so I'd just do an aref equals, and then I could just paste in that URL, right? That URL for YouTube. Right, equals and in. So that's really all you, if you were doing a video, that's how you would do it, and you would place the content in there. Now, having said that, okay, the other way you could do it. So that's the thing about, there's so many different ways to do things. So I'm just giving you options here. Oh, where's my, oh, it's in. Okay, so the other way you can do it, which is kind of fun, and I think a cool way to do it, is you can also, there's sharing it, of course, you can embed it. So you can actually take this iframe right here, right? You could actually take that code and just place that. Okay, so that's the other way you could do it. You could take that, and right here where this is at, you could take that iframe. I think that iframe should be fine inside that div, but again, play with it, see how it looks. Actually, let's just go ahead and do that. I'm going to hit save here, part 1. I'm going to come over here to my file. I'm going to give it a second here, see if it shows up. It's actually just trying to render that. I'll give it a second because it is, my system is running really slow, so I'll come back to that in a moment, see how that worked out. Okay, I'm going to close some things here because just have too much going on. Now, so that's part 1, okay? And then part 2, we've talked about, I'm not adding anything here either. Part 2 seems to me pretty straightforward. The key is, again, 3 different trace routes. When you do each part, right, give it a new layer so that when I look at it, I know the different, somehow give it a name telling us where those locations, the different places you did the trace routes. And then it's nice to color them differently so that when we look at this map, right, so it's going to have, color code each layer or each trace route individually here, okay? So now on this one, and again, I don't feel like I have to go over too much of this because we covered a little bit already, and then once you're ready, you just share it, okay? And you can change this, I change it to anyone with a link, so it doesn't make it public. It's up to you how you want to do that. But once you get that, then you can just copy, okay? And then that's where I would go. So in this case, in the second part, in the all hops included, and you can see what I did here, that's actually this right here. So instead of creating another page, so I'm not going to make you create another page, you can create another page, but you don't have to for this one. You can just give the link to the Google map. Okay, so if you want to see what that looks like, okay, good. All hops included, right? So this, if I click on it, just takes me to that Google map that I created with those different hops. Again, if you want to use something different, I'm cool with that. Just run it by me to make sure, right, there was nothing there. Let me see if that rendered through. Okay, so I need to look at that code a little bit. And here's my guess. My guess is that maybe because it's local, that may be something that I'd want to look at, right? So there's just different ways. Play with the way you want to do that. Okay, now let's go to the last one. So I'm gonna make this look through here. I think this one to me, seems pretty straightforward. It does require some busy work to get that done, but there you go. Okay. Now, so in this last part, I talked about this a little bit last time, but now I'm actually going to walk you through it. So remember, this was the page I was going to do the analysis on. So there's a couple ways to do this. You can come over here, file, and by the way, they call this the hamburger. You come over and you do file, save page as. So in this case, what I did is I scrolled through to find my directory that I have all my files in, okay? And then notice how it wanted to create this particular file name. It is worth noting, and Robert mentioned this, and I think it's worth noting so you get used to these ideas of camel case, okay? So camel case is the idea of using an upper case on a compound word, right? So in this case, if I was going to really use camel case, I would have no spaces. I would uppercase each word if I wanted, or start with a lowercase, you know, something like that. But I would recommend using the standard HTML. That really is more of the standard used on the web than HTML, and there's actually a history there, but I won't go over that. But however you do it, I'm not going to mark off again, I'm just showing you here. When you do that, it saves in not only the file, it creates a directory based on the name that you give it, right? So again, being conscious of the name. But first do that so that you save that. So then once you save it, you go look at the directory, okay, that it is in. So for me, I actually have to browse through because my brackets, for some reason, and I should have changed this, but I didn't, my brackets actually has a samples, and then it has a root, and then there is my 82 file, right? So then here is, okay, the file, and here is what it downloaded. So when I ask for what are the image files, right, so you just go through and look at them. It's actually kind of just an accounting, really, more than anything else. So I have 2 CSS files, I have 2 HTML files right here. I have, in this case, it doesn't tell me the kind of file, so you could kind of guess by looking at them. JS API, some kind of JSON file that references some JSON data through the API, I guess. But again, if they don't tell you, of course you wouldn't know unless you did a lot more research, which I'm not interested in at this point. I see I have this many JavaScripts, okay? I have, now in this case, remember, your PNGs are also graphics files, okay? So you have to, when you think about image files, and I'll show you again what I mean in the write-up, but it would also be your, oh, did I not see some images earlier? Okay, they're all there together. I thought I saw some. Anyway, it must have been before so let me show you this. What I did is I actually clicked on type, and what that does is it sorts them by type. So you can look in here, and it really is kind of interesting to then go look at those individual files to then see where they show up on the page. Okay, so going back here. So the analysis is to create a web page for the link. Now, again, in this case, let's talk about how you would do this. Now, in this case, I do want you to create, like you did in the first one, a new file. So this would be possibly called part 2 if you want it. Or again, you can name it anything you want, right? In that page, you determine the number of graphics files and the types of graphics files. So we can see in my particular example, Google only uses PNG files. This is actually becoming the new standard in some ways for graphics files, but your page will vary. Okay, and then determine the number of CSS files, and then using Chrome DevTools. So this is actually where you'll do a little bit of writing, and I previewed this last week. You got a little hands-on on it. What I'm going to specify here is that there's at least 250 words here that you'd write about attempting to talk about how this page is put together, right? So if I was to look through here, I would start at the top, right? I would start, actually, let's drill down a little bit here, right? So it's really in the body, right? The head is going to have varying types of information in it. We already know this from, but it's really in the body that we start to look at, right? So in this case, we have, I have a div, right? Let me just start at the top here. Make sure I'm at here. There we go. So then it starts obviously at the body, right? So and then the body, I'd come over and look at some of the CSS to see if I could at least talk about how this thing is put together. Now again, because every page is different, I'm not going to give you an exact how it's going to look. I just want you to spend enough time to start thinking about how you would talk about some of these things, right? So here is my header dash wrapper. Kind of makes sense what that is, right? So it's the header of the page, and inside of there is an ID called header. What is that header doing? What content is it containing, right? So again, I think what I would tell you to do is focus more on looking at this, corresponding it to way the page, what's on the page. So you can say this div, this header, right? And then if you feel like it, if you have that, understanding, and then dig more into the CSS, because believe me, it's not as hard as it seems. Okay, but the thing when I was doing this, I was like, okay, so the idea of this is that you're going to end up getting, hopefully into CIT85, getting more of the coding that is actually going to give you even a deeper, obviously, that focus of that course. But here, I just want you to start being able to look at code and giving an attempt to start understanding it. Okay. So now what you'll do is upload this to your own space and provide the link. Okay, so in this case, I haven't done this particular one, right? So in this would be 3, right? So this would be web page analysis. Okay, so I'd put whatever content I wanted. And then the reference would be to possibly part 2. Again, you could name it. Now, notice because I haven't created it, it tried to autocomplete, but because I haven't created it, it didn't find it. And that's where I could take what I had done in part 1, do File, Save As, and give it part 2. Okay. Now, where I want to end is really the all-important FTP. Okay, because what's important for you to do here is have it, because sometimes I've noticed, especially with some of, depending on the bootstrap and how you've done that, because the thing that, and Robert pointed this out to me too, thank you Robert, by the way, for working ahead and giving me some heads up here, is that the way bootstrap was downloaded looked different in the video than there, right? So if you just go to bootstrap, and you look at get it and you download it, then you can just download. Ooh, there it is. It's coming. There we go. You can just download it here, right? It does give you the ability to do the CDN, which is another way, but downloading it is a good experience of having it locally. And then what I did is I extracted it into a directory. Oh, that's the wrong one I didn't want to show you. But that's okay, because that's actually, oh, here it is. Yeah, so I extracted it in a different directory, and then I just copied over the CSS, the fonts, because those are the 3 directories, and then I placed those into the directory I was working in, just like he did in the video. There's nothing new there, okay? So the part of this is I ended up using, because it's true, that the way he showed to get the CDN was not there, so I just went and pulled it off of Google, and the way I found that was I just searched for CDN jQuery, because that's the other thing you needed, CDN reference, and then I found one on Google's page, and then I just copied and pasted it in there. The reason I say this is that sometimes when you're developing locally, until you go to the server, some things may not show up. It's nothing really here significant. I'm just going to scroll down and show you. That's what I grabbed to reference the jQuery. And actually I ended up referencing 2.1, actually the latest one as well. Okay. All right. So, but now once you do that, you then have to figure out based on your particular FTP selection of program. I think many of you chose FileZilla, right? There's a couple ways you can do this. First is you have to make sure that on the HTTP side, okay, so let me just do this. I'm going to, is already connected. So once you connect, and you come over here, let's pull it over a little bit so you can see this. And I'm guessing most of you have all seen this, right? There's all these directories, but the only one you care about, as I've said before, is the HTTP docs, okay? So then under here, there's a couple of ways I could get these directories to go over, right? If you right click on them, you can upload. The key to that is you want to be on the right location. So if I'm uploading CSS, the directory, I'd want to make sure my current directory on here is under HTTP docs. That way it goes underneath there. I'd want to do the same with fonts and JS, okay? Where's my part 1 dot? Oh, I just hadn't refreshed it. That's what it was. I was looking for my part 1. My part 1 and 2 wasn't there. But in general, this is the way you do it with this particular FTP, right? You can just hit upload, or the other way you can do it is just double click. And there's probably tons of ways to do it. And if you want to just do a quick search on whatever program you selected, do that as well. But, you know, my host name, I ended up doing 17 because I noticed nobody had gotten that far, and then the password, and then I just did a quick connect. But you can also save that information. It'll actually ask you if you want to save it, and that's how you do it. So then so that's the thing, is you want to upload all the information out of those directories, including your index file. Obviously most important, not most important, they're all important, right? And then once you do that, you go out to the site to make sure. And this again would be the server side to make sure everything is there. And then this is the link you'll give me. Okay, so you can see here, I haven't updated it, right? So actually let's end with me updating. I'm going to do this. I'm going to get out of FileZilla because I don't have a link yet. I'm just going to start it back up. Because this process of uploading things is a really important part, okay? Oh, look what it did. Did it forget it? Okay, so I just went and did that. So the other way you can do is save that, and that's probably what I should have done, but I didn't. So, you know, there's other ways you can set up your site manager. That's actually another way to do it. So here's the deal, right? So now my site up there has not been updated with all my changes that I've done locally, so I need to upload. So what do I need to upload? Well, I need to upload that because that's the third part. Here's the second part, or the first part, right? So I can see, again, I want to double click to make sure I'm in the right directory. So I can do this. I can right click and just say upload. And so there goes my part 1. I can upload that. And you can do it all at once. I just personally like to kind of do it this way. Again, making sure I'm in that right directory. Okay. So let me see, what else did I think there was actually another file in here. Yeah, this was a play file I had. So I'm going to upload. Now the key, let me show you this, right? So look what I did. I'm going to upload an image, right? So in this case, I could either right click upload, or I can double click into images, come over here to images, and then just drag it over is the other way to do that. Okay, so I just clicked and dragged it over. So there's multiple ways is what I'm trying to say. So now that I've done that, if I come over here, then what I should see once that refreshes, takes a moment here. Oh, that's funny. You know what I did? I was sitting there talking, and you know what I hadn't done? I actually hadn't uploaded the index file, which I said was an all-important file. So there you can see. Each one teach one, then goes to part 1. Oh, look, see? My video now works. That's awesome. My hops included, boom, goes to there. That's awesome. Everything is awesome. All right, so then looks like the only one that I didn't save was my one to my part 2, because I told you I hadn't created it yet. Okay, so that's the only one. So that, again, you can create that file however the link. You can. I didn't show you how to create the part 2, but I've walked you through the concept. As long as you can figure out how you want to put the content on there, you do have a certain amount of writing that you have to do, and I'll specify that. And I already told you this. I'll specify that here. What did I say? What did you guys remember? I'm going to say 250 words here. Okay. So why is this important? Let's come back. Actually, before I come back, let's do this. Let's go look at the syllabus. I know this is so much longer than normal, but it's a very important thing because of this. Your projects, there's only 2 of them. It's worth 12.5% of the class. So give it all the effort and time it deserves. Reach out if you need help. Come see me. So let me just say this. It's probably a good thing. So here we are. I've given you until Monday to get that upload done. So hopefully this ending part helped with the FTP concepts. Those are important. And then you will have until the 13th for project 1 to be complete. Okay, and then this is the week I'm going to be in training all day. I will be responsive to email, and this is DevFest. Okay, so I actually need to work ahead and do the week after as well. Okay, so bringing it back. Please don't get overwhelmed. I jumped around a little bit. I did try to get as organized as I could. I think it will require you to watch the video a couple times, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. And again, reach out to me if you're struggling. The sooner you come see me for help, the sooner I can help you. The later it gets, the harder it is for me to help, especially on Mondays that it's due, because Mondays are probably one of my most challenging days for a variety of reasons. Not to say I wouldn't, okay? So the other thing is, if you need help, put all your files on a little USB and bring them in. That way we can look at them. All right, project 1 in the tank, baby. Excited. All right, have a great one. Bye.